Court will now come to order. First item of business on the agenda is the approval of the June 2024 and August 15, 2024 minutes.
And if you remember correctly, you had me go back and listen to the June minutes because of an discrepancy on something that the thought was said, but the minutes were correct.
Okay, yes, I do remember that.
I move that we accept speak tonight. I move that we approve the minutes for June 20th, 2024 and August 15th, 2024. Any necessary correction.
I second.
Okay, and it has been motion and second that we approve the minutes for June 20th, 2024 and August 15th, 2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No nays? At this time, we will start with our new business, discussion only. FLUM comp plan amendment for 201 North Summit Street Fire Station.
You can actually put the zoning change in there too together. If
Okay.
you wanted to, because this was discussed both of them.
Okay, thank you. And we will also discuss the zoning changes for 201 North Summit Street Fire Station.
Go ahead.
So, first of all, this is gonna be a very short meeting tonight, because,
Realize that.
because we really can't talk about these items. These items are quasi judicial in nature. The applicant happens to be the city in this particular case. But because we do not have proper notice for this item, this is quasi judicial, both of these are required public hearings. We have not issued proper notice under the land development code and Florida statutes. Notice is provided to the surrounding property owners within 300 feet, and the notice has to be issued 10 calendar days before the meeting. That was not done, and so we can't go forward and have a meeting. In addition, while I can I can describe the item to you as to what it is, any discussion, either pro or con, or any testimony, we can't hear that tonight. That has to be next month at the notice public hearing. But just so you understand what these two items are, they're both related. One is a change to the future land use map. The other is a change to the zoning map. Currently, this property is designated as commercial, and it's zoned general commercial 1. So this request is to change it to change land use to public facilities and buildings, and then public facilities zone. So that's what you'll be hearing next month. The reason for the change will be described in full, but it's important to understand right now that both zoning categories allow the use. There's a reason why we're going to public facilities versus keeping it as GC1. All of that will be described next month. But in terms of whether the use is allowed, the city ultimately is planning on putting up a new building. That new building would be allowed under the current zoning. It's also going to be allowed under the proposed zoning. So whether the building goes up or not, it will not be impacted by the underlying zoning. What the zoning is gonna impact is just how the building goes up. And that's all I can really say about it.
I have a question. If things are the same under both zonings, why are we changing it? Just,
We're gonna be changing it because the use is allowed under both the future land use and the zoning. The existing zoning allows it, the proposed zoning allows it. What's different though are the requirements in the zoning district. And because the requirements are different in the zoning district, it's more advantageous to the applicant, which in this case happens to be the city, for the new zone.
that was a good political answer because it didn't mean much to me. Can you dumb it down a little bit? I mean, what is it, financial reasons the city wants?
No. It literally has to do with the requirements of the zoning districts are different. Right, things like setbacks, right?
Right.
We have a zoning book that's filled with different zoning categories. There are multiple different single-family zoning categories, right? There's an SR1 and there's SR1A. What's the difference? There are lot size differences, there are setback differences. And so
So is this,
the situation is,
so that they can go ahead and build a new building? I mean,
let me explain this, and all I can actually do at this point is repeat it. The use that they want to do is add an ambulance station to an existing fire station, okay? The current zoning allows it. The proposed zoning will allow it. The difference is the requirements in those two districts, right? The district that we're proposing to change it to, which is public facilities, is been designed for public buildings. So, that's the purpose of it. But in terms of the use is allowed in either situation. And that's really all I can say at this point.
Mark, from your earlier comments, I assume you will give definition of the differences at our next meeting?
The definitions will be,
Such as
very
setbacks.
very clear.
Yeah,
Very clear.
I thought so, thank you.
Is this different from what's in our packet, or it's kind of spelled out in the packet? Is that what, or are we gonna receive something different?
For the definition.
Yeah, the staff report will be the same. I might supplement it with actually presenting, showing you the zoning categories.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that's really all we can talk about for these first item. And next item on here is a variance request. Again, that variance request will be next month. The applicant who was here earlier, actually, she has gone home already because, again, this cannot be discussed this month. It's quasi-judicial item and has to be appropriately noticed, so we can't discuss that item.
And you're speaking of 195 Chestnut?
I'm talking about 195 Chestnut.
Thank you.
So next month you will have the comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning for 201 North Summit, which is the fire station. You will have the 195 Chestnut variance request. You will also have an item that is for a complement rezoning for a property that is located on Central Avenue. The applicant currently has multifamily zoning, and they want to apply for Central Business District zoning, which is the new zoning category that is on, that was created in the land development code. So, they're applying for that early. So that brings me to the next thing that I just want to talk about, and I'm just going to talk about it briefly, because this, again, is not an agenda item. But, next month, I'll be, showing you, the zoning maps for the, central business district rezoning. It is, you guys have seen these proposed maps before. As part of the process, we're going to adjust them somewhat. First of all, as you may have heard, from this meeting, there's going to be some direct change. Somebody wants to go ahead early with that zoning. And so we're going to adjust those maps, and I want to present those adjustments to you because I want to proceed forward with basically doing a mass rezoning. So what's going to happen next month, there is somebody who doesn't want to wait for that mass rezoning. They want to go out ahead of that because they're anxious to take advantage of that new zoning. So we will bring that forward, but we are going to bring forward those maps because I want to issue notices of a general public meeting that will occur where I will present to all the property owners that are potentially going to have their property rezoned. So I'll have a public meeting, most likely here. And then the notice that was sent out will also make them aware that there'll be other subsequent opportunities, because after we have this sort of neighborhood informational meeting, and we'll talk about at the next meeting, but those dates should be discussing those with you guys. And so there'll be a general neighborhood meeting where everybody will receive notice of changes to their property. And it will also indicate what the dates of the planning and zoning commission meetings will be, and the subsequent city commission meetings. Ideally, we would like to be able to do that with one notice. That would be the most efficient way to do it. Hopefully, we're able to do that. We'll go through a public, a general public meeting process, get the planning board and city commission, without having to, make alterations and, change the schedule. I don't know, whether that will be the case, but that is what we will be attempting to do. And so next month, you'll get to see new maps for that central business district and some of the other zoning map series that are associated with the new land development. And with that, that concludes everything that I need to discuss at this meeting.
Mark, on that central business district, is it optional to get their zone changed on their businesses? Is it an optional thing, or is it?
My recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission and to the City Commission is that they allow people to opt out.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clear that up.
My next question is, was it necessary to meet?
Well, it was necessary, the notices were sent out, so, we didn't know how many people were going to show up tonight. It probably would have been necessary at least for 3 of you to show up. And
Why, we've done nothing but a.
well, we could have,
minutes.
because we notified the meeting, we could have.
Oh, I see, I understand, thank you.
I didn't have time to cancel it, so
Sure,
we notified.
thank you.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairperson? Am I allowed? Oh, you're Mr.
Yes.
Chairperson. I am so sorry, Ms. Glover.
That's okay, you, have to come
I'm
to
so
the
sorry.
stand and
Real simple request.
give your, name and your address, please.
My name is Charles P. Erkman Jr. I'm from 121 McGrady Lake Road, known as Crescent City, but it's not, but I represent Holy Comforter Church at 223 North Summit Street. My only question is, in the packet next month, is it possible to include from the Land Development Code the description of GC1, setback requirements, heights, and everything else, and PF, so that we can see them side by side? Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure,
Thank you.
Sure, sure.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Did a great job as an inspector on my house.
Thank you.
Anyhow, the property that's been kind of derelict next to me, the one they put the new roof on, but they haven't worked on it in 7 months.
I don't work for the county anymore. I'm
No, I
retired.
just thought you might have some general information.
I would call code enforcement. Yeah, that's your best bet. Miss Pam here in Crescent City is excellent. If you call and talk to her, she'll take care of it. She's a great person.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that means that we don't have anything else,
I have some questions, and some thoughts, okay? Each month or each 4 months, we all meet and review, what's on the agenda. And sometimes there's some opposition, people will note why they're opposed to this. I think it would also be beneficial if we're voting yay. Why do you feel that this change or this restructuring is going to benefit the city? I think it would be, for all of us, it would be more cohesive for all of us to kind of get an idea of where everybody's spots are. And things like that. Do you feel that would work?
I understand what you're.
And if you have no thoughts, you can just be neutral on it. Let it float by, but I think I'd like to hear why you think this is a good thing for the community, since we're passing it.
Passing what, just anything that you
Anything.
talked about?
No, signage from McDonald's.
Well, I mean, because we have, things implemented and in place, and it's our job our decisions are to line up with, the things that have been implemented and in place for the city. So the signage, all of that, has been put in place, not saying that it can't be changed, but that is what we try to basically make our decisions based on making them line up with, the guidelines that we have voted on. We sat in workshops and decided on those items. So when, residents, companies come before us, so we look at our packets before and have Mark and them ask them questions to see what is, he give us his opinion about it, and then it's our jobs to make the best decision for the city as a whole.
Okay.
So,
I like the idea. And so it just complements why we're voting yes, So I think it would be nice if we choose to make comment, as well as staff. I assume, Brad, you're talking about us and staff.
Right.
Yeah, I think it would be nice.
Us and staff? Is that what you're asking?
No,
Because I think I
just-
remember the
just
meeting
us.
when you
Oh,
were
just
talking
us?
about the signs.
Well,
Because I think when we.
I think it's important to understand, do you remember back to the planning commission training that we did? Right, certain actions, you have different standards of review. There are legislative acts, there are quasi-judicial acts, and there are administrative actions or ministerial actions. And so when you are making those decisions, you have to think differently. You have to consider each item differently. So for example, signage. Signage is administrative or ministerial in terms of the decision-making process. You're applying an existing rule to a plan before you. It meets the rule or doesn't. Your thoughts as to whether you like the sign or whether you think the erecting the sign would not be good for the city is actually irrelevant to whether it meets the rule or not. Now, if you have rules that allow signs that you think, are not good for the city, well, then you agree at some point in the future to change the regulation. But when you're looking at that sign that makes you think, aha, we need to change this rule, if it meets that rule, you still have to approve the sign.
Oh, I
Okay.
understand that. You explained that very well.
It has been.
But we could also say, when we voted yes, because of medical requirements, there could be improvement in this rule, which should be discussed at a later date.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, or it's a great rule,
I mean-
or
That's how we'll
Yeah.
know,
what to change.
what to change. It'll be
If it's
because of our experience
Right,
with, applications and applying the rules to various pieces of property, and we'll decide, when I say we, I really mean you and the council, I'm just giving advice.
sure.
I make suggestions, you make decisions, or ultimately the city commission makes decisions. But ultimately, that's how we're gonna know that something's not working.
Okay, that's all good, I understand that, but what I'm looking for is, what if we'll use the sign as a source of subject here? What if somebody introduces a variance regarding the sign? And everybody says, sure, yeah. I think it would be beneficial to know why the variance, why they voted yes for the variance.
Okay, well.
And that's not really.
Yeah, so that's different than, so again, that's a different decision-making process. That'll be a quasi-judicial process, right? So when you're making a quasi-judicial decision, you're not just looking, you're not necessarily looking at the rule, you're looking at a set of criteria that have been adopted, and you're comparing the application and the testimony that's being presented, by the applicant and perhaps somebody who's in opposition as to whether that criteria has been met, and then you make
I
that decision.
understand all that, but I think you're missing my point. My point is, I would like to hear from these people that vote yay for the variance. Because it's not a rule, they're not following rules with that. I would just like to hear why they feel that this variance, is gonna benefit or add or whatever to the community. I mean, we hear when people don't want something, they're oppositional to it.
I feel like we do that, and this is just, and correct me if I'm wrong, since I joined the planning and zoning, I feel like we've gone through different, when we were, doing the land development code, we went through different, phases of it. And so along the way, we've had new members to join. And so some of the things when you start talking, because we went through all the different decision-making processes and things of that nature. And so when we have new members that come along, if it's information that they weren't a part of and we're now, voting on something, we may understand what those rules are, because we sat through those meetings and we read the information, we discussed it, we talked about it, we kind of hashed it out. And so when we were talking about the sign, and I remember reading in the minutes where you were like, well, I don't want that sign. And then you were stressing, well, we're not here to vote on the sign, we're here to vote on what was in front of us. And so it's just understanding the process of what our purpose is as far as the agenda is concerned, because I feel like we went through everything when we talked about the different zonings, we spent a lot of time hashing things out, but our committee has changed too. So, when I first started out, it was some of us that walked through certain parts of it. And so maybe I had an understanding of something that maybe when you came along, we you may not have been a part of that decision.
Well, that's not good, but that kind of divides us, because you're saying, well, I'm the keeper of the knowledge here.
No, I'm not.
You weren't privy to this knowledge because you came on board later.
Right, well, I'm not saying that you're not, that I'm the keeper, so maybe the issue might be how do you go back and, review that information so that you're also aware of that as well. So I don't know if that's just something that I thought of when I sat up here and we talked about different things.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get across is I would just like to hear a person's comment as to why they voted yea. If they say, I look at the guy's face, I mean, I would just like to hear, because we hear the negative, Dan will vouch for that, he opposes things. But I'd like to hear the positive side. I mean, in other words, I'm voting on this variance because I feel that it will.
Presumably, you're voting on the variance. If you're voting in favor of the variance, it's because you've made a determination as a group, the criteria.
But I'd like to hear what that determination
Well,
was.
that's what he's saying. I think it's based off of the criteria. It's not what I'm feeling. It's like if it meets the criteria.
Yeah, but if it's a variance, it doesn't meet criteria.
No, it doesn't meet the code, but there's criteria for granting a variance, right? So that's built into our land development code, and it's built into every land development code. And the reason for that is because, a broad application of the rules just doesn't make sense in every individual case, right? You try to create the best rules you can. You hope that, that it will work successfully in,
I'm not arguing
the vast majority of
I'm not
cases.
arguing against the rules, okay? The rules are there, what's been set down for guidelines is there, okay? If somebody comes in and wants to change the interpretation or change those rules, then that's considered, other than a variance, what would you call that?
Changing the rules, I would call a code amendment. A variance,
Okay.
I would ask,
So then-
is not, is not a change to the code. You're providing hardship relief to an individual property owner based on the peculiar circumstances of their piece of property and how those circumstances interact with the criteria that has been set forth in the landowner code
All right.
that allows you to vary the rules.
I,
Do you understand what I'm talking about?
well, I do, and to simplify it, I would just recommend, Brad, if we have that situation, if you want to ask me why I voted, I'll be happy to
Okay.
give you a response. I think that's the best way to handle it. How do you feel, Mark?
Yeah, presumably, when you're looking at a variance, you're looking at somebody's individual, you're looking at a fence, whether you approve it or not, it doesn't have citywide implications normally, but there might be that you felt on balance. This was the best decision based on the criteria, and you provided some relief for somebody, and so, the rules that generally apply to, everybody for fences in this particular circumstance should be varied, and it may not because you think it has any, really large implications.
Very good.
Any more questions or concerns? So,
I just have a question.
yes,
Or concern. I asked Charles about it. What is going on with that property? The one,
I think it's 315 or 515 Prospect Street.
What property are you?
so it's the once condemned property that someone bought, resold, they put a new roof on it, and then they started gutting it about probably 6-7 months ago, and they haven't done a thing to it. You said it was in the county under what? What was that word you used? Some kind of review, what was that word? I asked you today, anyway. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's a Pam question.
Okay.
It would be a Pam
Yeah,
question.
Yeah,
that's,
it's a
Pam,
question.
the Taylor, the,
Okay,
Because it might be under the county,
code enforcement.
yeah, it might be under.
so we don't have much communication with the county, is that right?
In terms of,
In terms of anything that's going on sometimes, building permits. I'd like to see who's applying for building permits. I'd like to
Well,
see,
you can go on the county one, on the county site, it's all public knowledge. And you can put in you can put in an address on the building department site.
all right,
and it'll
and they
give
will
you an
pull up
update on what's going
on
on.
that property itself.
Huh?
I'll just call Pam.
Yeah, it'll give you update on what's
But you
going on.
you can call and question Dan's property if you wanted to, on the building department site. If
Go ahead.
If you pull the permit for a porch, you know what I mean? You can see it all on that site, all on that one site.
And I suggest we continue this discussion, when we meet as the Historic Preservation Board.
Right.
Because we discussed some of those issues, at that board previously.
And that's next.
Okay,
Would you like a motion?
yes, I would like a motion that we adjourn the November 1st, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you all.
And, just
I have one other question, not just a personal. I received
once you
the
open it up,
application, a copy of the application for Moonshine Lane.
Yeah, which, when you say the copy of the application, they made a bunch of different applications. Are you talking about for
For the
the
water.
board manager?
So they made a, why did I get that? Because I'm close to that property or?
Are you? I don't know.
Well, I'm like 3 houses away.
Okay, yes, yes.
So I'm considered what, I'm not considered a butter.
You're, potentially an effect,
Yes.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah. When I first moved to yes, great guy.
Are you opening up the historic preservation?
Yes, you ready?
I'm ready,
Okay.
whenever you are.
Okay.
I don't stop.
Yeah, you've got it.
Oh, where's this,
She's not here tonight, she couldn't make it, she's out of
okay,
town.
all right, okay,
So we can just proceed.
okay, all right, at this time, we'll,
Yeah, so they go outside.
You're welcome to stay.
what are you gonna do?
Oh, this is our Historic Preservation Board meeting, so we really don't have anything.
I was gonna say, do you have anything on your agenda?
Well, yes, approval of the minutes from the last meeting. So We're gonna,
Matt,
we're gonna do,
Yeah.
that's about it.
Okay, all right.
Nothing exciting.
Okay, so at this time, we will open the Historical Preservation Board, meeting for November 21st, 2024. First item of business is approval of the August 17th minutes.
I make a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
There's the motion and second that for the approval of the August 17, 2024 Historic Preservation Board meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is public comments, business items.
Madam Chairman, may I discuss the rest of the agenda and make some recommendations?
Yes, yes.
So, when we meet, we go through these and there really isn't anything. So I'm recommending, for instance, that number one, responsibilities, we cut it out. We eliminate goals, recommendations, pending. And that we put in new business, old business, and other business
In the places of responsibility, goals, recommendations. and things.
in place.
What were they? New business, old business?
I mean, you could probably just stick with just new business, old business, and
Other
like a
business.
regular meeting, yeah, as opposed to having the categories. like
Yes,
that.
yeah, but there's a few that I want to talk about, but the ways that were
So
bragged
new
around,
business, old business, and
other business, whatever that may be. So,
So it should say old business first
yeah.
and then new business.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So one thing that we've asked for in the past is to be notified, so we have an understanding of the inventory of condemned buildings. And that is something that, of course, the county needs to provide to us, but they're contracted out to take care of that. So when we meet, we should have, we should have a report listing the condemned buildings, and especially any new buildings that have been condemned.
So who will be responsible for getting that information?
The county.
City manager,
Do he need to be here?
He's in there discussing other stuff.
Yeah, well, Michael will take care of it, and he may delegate Pam. Or require the county to give us a report.
It's been my experience, when you call up there, they'll say, well, what's the address you're talking about? And they'll give you that information. And then, you know, in other words, they don't tend to volunteer, like you said, a list or additions to the condemned buildings.
I can appreciate that. However, we are part of city government,
I mean, I'd like to see it.
and they are contracted by the city.
so I would tell you if it's anything like Volusia County, if you're talking to somebody at the counter, that's all they're gonna be able to do. So you're gonna have to talk to a supervisor or somebody that can run a crystal report or something in their system that's gonna allow them to generate the report that you're looking for. Somebody that's sitting at the counter is not gonna be able to generate that report.
But in regard to us, they should generate it for our meeting.
Right, but I think that's his level to somebody that's a supervisor.
Exactly.
Work on that.
He'll
Because
just make the
somebody on
report.
the counter isn't gonna be able
Right.
to generate that.
And then with that will help us to identify what we may want to consider as worth preserving or.
Yes. Yeah, the house
Makes sense.
on South
That
Prospect
actually, that's a good idea.
Yes.
that has been vacant for numerous owners and in horrible condition is a fine example. And yet today, we don't know the progress. All we know is, from Brad's bringing to our attention, is that nothing's been done for 6 months. So it's still, and they put a new roof on it. So structurally, it must still be in a condemned condition.
I believe it is.
Yes.
When I called the county in regards to the roof, they said a homeowner has the right to put a new roof on his home. And I said, well, what if the underpinning or the structure of the home is, you know, rotten? That house, it's more than 100 and something years old, you know. What if there's rotten wood, what if there's termites? And they said, doesn't matter, they can put a new roof on it.
Yes.
I was getting ready to say, I wonder, I think that's what he said at one point, as long as they are doing something, that's what prolongs it or something.
Yeah, well,
I feel like that's
Yeah,
right.
if they're getting inspections, they have permits and they're getting inspections, it's gonna prolong how it works out.
Yeah.
Timeframe.
And most of the time when it's like that, that's the first thing, you are advised to do, okay, I will put a new roof on it. Even though it's in the condition, that's the, first thing they say, put a new roof on it. So,
Hey, you're attempting to protect what you
Yeah.
have.
so you know, it might sound crazy, but that's what it is.
So once we have that list, then what? Just,
Well, for instance, then, let's use South Prospect as an example. Again, with no activity. We could then request, if there have been any building, permits requested. Or find out if it's been simply stagnant with no activity at all. And then, what is the time frame that if they take no action, it's considered pending being condemned, for instance. So it keeps us in tune with what's happening in our city as a historic, board. That's how I see it.
okay.
The middle school is an ongoing, project. Of course, we have the Blue Ribbon Committee for it. And I can give an update on that. So I think that should stay. I think the historic district should stay because, it's being reassessed. And it's been 30 years, Karen, since it's been done,
Yeah.
since
something
they
like
did
that.
the inventory, what houses qualify. So now they're going to do it, and it's going to include mid-century houses. Up until 1974. So that's probably gonna put, out of the 220 approximately homes that are listed now, it's probably gonna greatly increase that number. The city has put out a bid for companies to do the survey. And, the deadline for that is, prior to the next commission meeting,
Survey for
to do an inventory
Will
of
be included in the historic district?
houses, that should be included as important in the historic district. And it would be like the 40s, 50s, 60s up to the mid-70s.
Okay, and when you say mid-century, it has nothing to do with architecture, it's just when the house was built?
When the house was built, yeah. And so in the January meeting, if they had bids, then they would issue a contract to have that work done. And, it must be, it should be completed by June. Because that's when the funding is available.
So what is it that we were waiting on as a committee? Because
The CLG,
okay,
you're still waiting on
okay.
And what is the CLG?
it.
It's like we're not an official historic board, right, until we get that? Like we-
You're official board, but you're not an official city. CLG.
Certified local government? Is that
Yes,
what it is?
that's exactly what it is, certified local government.
Is that the,
Which means it gives us what? It was something that we weren't able to do as a preservation board.
Preservation and saving. It puts you on the National Historic Preservation Act, it will put you under that, the Act of 1966. Where right now you're not. People can do whatever they want to their historic houses. And unless we are a CLG, we still can't tell them what to do unless they're part of that. So let's say if your house
Mm-hmm,
is built in 1920, and they consider it a historic house,
mm-hmm.
you can still do whatever you want to it as long as you're not part of that CLG. You have the option to be a part of that. And once you're a part of that, then nobody can touch your house. You can't touch your house unless it's built in 1920.
Mm-hmm.
Like, change the windows have to be the same, the roofing has to be, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. The architecture has to be done. And it has to go with what was built in 1920.
And then I also remember something being said about, you know, like we were trying to identify homes that could potentially, like we didn't have the ability to do that.
Who does that? That was the historic president, no, the Footland Peninsula,
Historical Society.
the society has those, this house matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
They
that's,
have those.
that's a little
That's
different.
what- That's what, yeah. So
Yes,
you can
yeah.
basically base it off that.
Okay.
So if you have a sign in your house that says this house matters, you know it matters because it's part of their historic,
Just recognizing
they're
historical
recognizing the
structures.
house.
Mm-hmm.
But the CLG, will give us, the city more of an opportunity to put in some ordinances or guidelines.
Right, I remember it was something around that.
Yeah.
And with that, it will give, the property owner, an opportunity to, so to say, meet with the city and discuss, improvements.
Mhm.
I mean, in any good government, it's a give and take. You know, I personally don't think it's always cut and dry, but,
But until then, right now, they can do whatever they want to their house, but until we become a CLG, then if they wanted to make improvements, then they would.
No, they can still do, that's the thing, they have to want to
They
be
have to
part of
be
the
a part of
CLG.
it, yeah.
And nobody can tell you what you can and cannot do to your house.
But if you become a
But
part of
if
it,
if you become a part of
then
it,
you
then
gotta
they can
follow
tell
the
you,
guidelines,
All right,
yeah.
thank you.
then they can tell you that, hey, you can't do that.
So what's the advantage of becoming a part?
I think because when you become, if you are part of the CLG, you have more options with grants, historical grants.
yeah, funding is. the
And
issue.
funding, the funding's there for you, but if you're not part of the CLG, you can't, those grants aren't available to you at all.
And what-
That's the whole difference.
When are we gonna get that rate?
I have no idea, I think it's still somewhere out there, I'm not sure. I'll ask Christina tomorrow about it.
Could you, give us an update on it?
Yeah.
Thank you. So 10, I think architectural site guidelines, that we can take that out. And bring it back when,
As needed,
yes, yeah, after we get our CLG or so forth. And land use and zoning maps,
That's been already done,
pardon?
that's already been done.
I think that's exactly right, yeah. Yeah. New historical recommendations and nominations. My question here is whether we should eliminate it, or should we?
We can eliminate it, because those are gonna go when you get the CLG.
Right.
Then you can start making recommendations. You know what I mean?
Well, we do have the historical society that could make recommendations to us.
so we're gonna eliminate 6,
No, 5.
5.
And again, city codes and land development codes, this is the same thing. When there's an issue, obviously they'll bring up the codes, so we can make a decision.
As needed.
That's why you can almost stick with all business, new business, and other business.
Right.
You know, and you just could, you got most of it crossed off.
Now you know my age. Approval minutes. However, it's a.
You were borrowed.
I remember one time,
Dan, you are the reason.
You are the reason.
Well, I know, but we were young.
I was really young.
At least I'm doing something about it.
That's all right.
Not it now.
You do that quite often. I wish you.
Yeah, well, I was thinking over it.
But, so,
And then Dan said, well, we need to shorten it.
yeah. Well, time served. But we all need to keep these items in mind, because
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be more important.
And I know.
As we grow
Right.
and more people come into our community.
Right. And I know that even for me, you know, when I have to go through, you know, because I may not have the expertise of, you know, building and codes or whatever. So when I go through, you know, for me, I have to run reference and just try to make sure I understand what it is that's in my packet. So if you look at my packet, you're gonna see a lot of handwriting and highlighting, because if there's terminology that I'm not familiar with, then I have to run reference and I look it up and try to, you know, see what it means so that I have an understanding. So if I have questions, then I'll remark questions to ask. And this is just how I learn. So if they answer the question during any presentation, then I don't ask the question because they've answered it for me. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's, you know, for me, so I can have an idea of what we are discussing so that I can try to make an informed decision, or if I'm given a comment that is true, something that I have a question about. Or maybe you guys might answer the question in the process, so. I mean, it's a lot to learn, for me, you know.
And I've been here, but in the last couple years, we didn't have all this.
Right.
We didn't have
Well,
I know.
all of this.
And
And
then
so,
somebody asked me for minutes, from back in 2018. I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy, it does like 3 meetings, so I'm like, okay, which one do you need? You know what I mean, and it's just, it was crazy that how
Yeah.
the difference
yeah.
in a couple of years makes.
We had nothing like this.
Yeah, so we got to go, and I didn't mean to say that we had the keeper of the knowledge, but in my brain, when I listened to the question that you all were asking, I was like, man, we went through all of those different things, and so unfortunately, when people come and join at different times, like I missed a lot of things, and when I first came, I was like, I don't know what it is that they, you know, that they had that background knowledge on, and so just learning the process is like, how can I go back and, you know, and try to bring myself up to snuff so that I am knowledgeable, you know. So for me, it's just, it looked like this, you know, research on you going on the website and just trying to kind of have an understanding of what it is. And so I wasn't trying to say, you know, your question wasn't bad, but it was just an observation of how can we, if we get a new member, and they're asking that question, you know.
It's tough when you have a member, I mean, you
Yeah.
have, I'm in charge of 7 boards, and I see it all the time.
Yeah,
And the only thing I can suggest, to anybody, please, if you have a question, don't hesitate to email me, my door's always open. I'm walking in, you don't know how many times a tree guy board member have walked by and just said, oh, I'm popping in, I have a question.
Yeah,
You know what I mean, and just, it's always open, my email's constantly going, even when I'm on vacation, I take this laptop with me so I can access emails.
yeah.
So I'm constantly hearing, if I don't know the question, if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna find out for
Right, yeah.
and so, and initially, and that was hard, because I'm like, okay, I can't talk to, we can't talk to each other.
You
So
can
I'm
talk to
like,
me.
you know, okay.
Well, socially.
Socially, yeah, but you can't
Not
talk
about
about
business.
business.
Right.
Exactly, so if there's ever a question, don't ever hesitate to ask. But I do in my office this afternoon asking questions, so I have no problem answering. And if I don't have an answer for you, I'm gonna find out for you.
Yeah.
And if we need to communicate to the board, we just go through Karen.
Okay.
And then I send out a general question or whatever, so.
I have a question for clarity here. If we're gonna get a monthly report on
Condemned buildings.
condemned buildings, is that under the historical society or is it under planning and zoning?
Well,
Oh, cool.
Well, you're both on, you're on the same board, so.
I know, but which,
I mean,
in other words, where would we discuss that?
And historical.
I would believe it would be under historical
Historical.
only because you're not planning or zoning anything.
So my next question is, do you think in order for us to keep our pulse, our finger on the pulse of the community, I think it'd be advantageous to know not only condemned buildings, but present state of affairs for remodels, you know, is it ongoing, and new permits. You know, so we have some idea of what's going on. I mean, the only way I find out if there's something being built in the community is I happen to drive by it.
You talk about personal homes or businesses?
Well, both. We don't have much in the way of businesses, but mainly personal.
Well, I think that is, Pam's job.
Yeah, but I mean,
She gets out a monthly report, Brad,
Yeah,
Pam does. She gets out a monthly report with the commission meetings. A monthly report is in the packet every month.
so the
And
question
so
is,
you-
Brad, do you want that report for this committee?
yeah, I'd like to see that.
I mean, it tells you who's going up in front of you know, who
Oh,
she
okay.
cited and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that,
Is that what you're asking? So you just want a
that would
copy?
keep us up to date.
So if they're wanting to build a home, like we see homes coming up,
Mhm.
those permits don't come through us.
no.
The zoning letters of approval come through the office.
So
But they don't come through, they don't need to, unless they're rezoning, or unless they need a variance because their home is too big for their property, or, but mine usually, when they come in, they bring in a site plan.
But you're saying there's already a report generated with that information, but it's not given to us, it's given to the commission.
Correct.
For code enforcement. So.
And
So-
building
I don't know about it.
Like,
Well,
Okay, so if I decide to go and build a house
Mhm,
right now,
mhm.
okay, is that what you're asking? That
Yeah.
you want us to know? So is that, do Pam get that information every month
Mhm.
of who's building a?
Why do we need to know
And-
who's building the house?
Yes,
I think
and
it'd be advantageous for us to know how the community is growing.
I disagree,
I think it's good because there are architects, I'm sorry, because you're, go ahead.
simply because,
It's not really their,
yes, and I remember sitting on this board and we had a group when they wanted to be able to decide how many people can live in your house.
Well, I think, you know,
Yes, but, and I say, that is not our business. That, you know what I'm saying? That is not what we do.
well, there could be a zoning, because, you know, if you've got four
Yeah,
families.
but that falls under code
1,400 square
That falls
feet.
under-
Yeah, but,
Yeah,
But,
it falls under code, not.
right,
Planning
and,
and
but
zoning.
I don't think that's planning and zoning, because at that time, we were in a recession when they were talking about this. So you have the money to put your children in a house, but if all of mine needed to come home and stay in my house,
Well, that isn't what I'm.
it was, but
I'm-
I'm just saying, that is what they were saying, and I'm like, that's not our concern.
And we
We
agree
don't,
with you.
yeah, we don't,
yeah.
However, there are architectural standards, codes within the city for new construction.
I don't think there's anything for residential though. I mean, there's zoning, like you can't put a mobile home in certain places and stuff like that, but I don't believe there's any architectural standards for residential.
I was told today there was, by Commissioner,
I don't know, who told you that,
Yeah, because I've never seen it
Commissioner
before.
Lori.
for architectural standards for
Right.
our house?
I think that'd be.
is that where he's talking
No,
about
we don't, I
where
don't think we have
the
that.
decision, like in,
Well, all the years I've read that code, I never saw it once.
everybody,
Even in the new.
everybody has
Yeah,
to have.
land
I
development
could be
code.
wrong, but I don't.
Well,
think
this
it-
one, we'll just have
Yeah,
to.
we could take
No.
away.
Karen, can you explore that?
What, to see if there's architectural standards?
Yeah.
I mean.
What do you want me to call
To buildings,
Commissioner Lori on
to build buildings with, businesses, I believe that there is,
Commercial.
There, yes,
Commercial.
commercial, yes.
there's commercial architecture standards, because they had to, they
But
thought
not-
they actually
but not
had to be.
residential.
certain-
Yes.
it? Not residential?
I don't believe in residential at all.
Well,
I'll look
can
into it, Dan, for you, but I
I
do
feel
not
like-
believe, I'll look
Yeah,
into
he'll
it.
just check and let us know.
But I don't
So,
think it's architectural standard, only in,
so that,
only in
that zeroes
commercial.
it down though, that, there are for commercial. So it would be nice for us to know of any new building, commercial building.
the only new building that's coming up is McDonald's. in
Well,
Houston.
I know it's not gonna be a big list.
Basically, but it's gonna come
However-
before you. No matter, if there's a new
Mm-hmm.
New construction.
new construction for
It comes,
business, it's
yeah.
gonna come before you. And
So-
if there's new buildings, if there's a new building, house
You
building,
know what those?
it's
codes
gonna
are?
come before you,
Mm-hmm.
because it's gotta go, they've gotta go through a
They're
site.
right on the.
Right, right.
You get them right on the website.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah, they're
so-
easier now.
Yeah, so there's different sets of codes. There's a land development code, which talks about the commercial architecture and that thing, and then there's the regular codes, which are like 1027. You know, once we
Yeah.
went over
Mhm.
before with the boating and all that.
Yeah.
And the zoning part of it, which talks about like the size setbacks and those kinds of things.
And I can show you, Dan, on our website, I can walk you right through it and how to look
Yeah,
at it.
we'll do that. I'll come in and visit you.
Because, yeah,
We'll take
because
care of
there's 10
it.
chapters
It's a
and
good
there's
read.
listed
Yeah,
one,
really
two,
good
they're
read.
real easy to read. I made it easy for everybody to be able to.
Yeah.
If you want, I can show you,
Oh, sure, I'll come in and visit
I mean,
after the holiday.
Okay.
And,
yeah, I mean, it's really simple.
However,
Just go out and hit the development code and bam,
my own thoughts, they could be improved.
huh?
My own thought is that they can be improved.
The land development code?
No, the architectural
Oh,
requirements of
Well, yeah.
commercial buildings.
Commercial?
Right.
Really, it needs to be improved in residential.
Well, I agree with that, but it appears that's a timing issue. That it would be more efficient to wait for the new survey of historical structures, because it brings in, 25 more years of architectural design, and then that's the time that you look at residential architectural.
But did we?
in 2018, they did a historic preservation ordinance. And I believe that the historic preservation ordinance has some architectural insight on historic buildings,
Residential,
residential, I believe. Now that I think about it, but I'll look into it and I'll make sure.
On the land development code?
2018 ordinance,
Okay.
the historical ordinance.
Okay.
We put, the changes that you made to.
is there anything left?
We can fit it all on one page now.
Yes. We don't want to waste
So
it.
there's new business,
In other businesses.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all
well,
on one
maybe
page now, thank
improvement
God.
minutes, public comments, those three,
And public
And keep
comments
the-
has to go on
Keep
here,
the
yeah?
middle school on there.
yeah, let's keep the middle school, because that's progressing.
That's a big project.
Yes, yeah. Anything else that we should keep?
So we're only keeping former middle school right now, right?
Did we take off?
Well, let's put a historic district as well, let's keep that.
Yeah, because that's an ongoing thing right now.
Yes,
And
yeah,
inventory of condemned properties.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Alright, sorry.
Yeah, we took our responsibility, goals, recommendations,
City codes and land
City codes and
development
land
code,
development code.
was already done.
new historical recommendation nominations,
That's gonna come back at a later date.
and, yeah, be as needed. And,
And of course, pending will come back with number 5.
So we're keeping former middle school historic district,
Number 6, number 8, number 9, we're keeping and adding new business, old business, other business.
Okay, all right. Good job, Dana.
Thank you. Would you like an update on the middle school?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about it.
So anyways, the committee has made great progress. And as I think I reported earlier, the school district had an appraisal done. And one of our committee members, Robert Scholl, who had a long career in real estate, contacted someone to have it reviewed. It came back with a much lesser value, substantially. Yes, and so then we also had the title company, they're working on title search. And they've come up with a number of unusual conditions. And we're talking about all 3 lots. Which further, has an impact on the value. And we've also had them requested that they review it again with the new information we have on some of the work that the committee has done in researching deeds and other unusual conditions. So the bottom line is the value is realistically much less, which makes it much more doable. The next is, of course, and we've been in conversations with the school district, and they've been very supportive. They love the idea of Crescent City taking over the property. Let's face it, with the schools they're building, they've got quite a bit of work to do. And it's interesting because originally the property was a Gilbert school. And then it appears that it was gifted, I think, to the city. And so forth. I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail. So it's been all positive. The 4th step is funding, because it's our charge to make it so it's affordable. What's affordable? That doesn't cost, what we like is doesn't cost the city anything. So that's our goal. And that can be, a lot of the funding can be done by grants. But as we all know, that can take multiple years. Finally, those buildings are built like bunkers. They're as solid as can be, and it's amazing. So it's very, very exciting. So our goal is to get all 3 lots for the city.
Does that include the lot that has that little, block home on it? A block?
Yes, the 5 acres.
Yeah.
Yes, that goes down to the
So
lake.
that's one of the 3?
That's one of the 3. And that lot is particularly interesting because the shorefront drops drastically. And there's a retention pond in front of it. It goes basically the length of the shore.
Wasn't that the old house that burnt down? There was a house there
Yes.
that burnt down.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big old historic house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
yeah,
You will
yeah.
always get of it. Well, it was a gold star.
And then there's another larger retention pond on that side. And
Yeah, I know the
those
retention.
retention ponds are for the school structures. So it complicates it all. Which in the long, the short of it is, it's ideal for the city to take it over.
So that, wow.
So it sounds like it's moving along.
It's very positive.
Good, excellent.
And then you look at the possibilities.
Mhm.
The gymnasium is a great event venue,
Mhm.
whether it's a wedding, where it's a show, a conference.
Yeah, because the auditorium's there as well.
Mhm.
There's the
Yes.
gymnasium and the auditorium, which is, yeah.
And that
There's a
there,
lot there.
a production company, that would be perfect to lease it out.
So the goal is for it to make money.
Yes, or at least break even.
Mhm.
Yeah, because it costs $100,000 to keep it, for the upkeep on it.
But it's 90,000 square feet of structure. I mean, it's massive. Plus you have the cafeteria.
Mhm.
Well, that would make a great restaurant. And you could also put in the restaurant could have a catering division. And now with home industries making bread and other things that are growing, you could put in a kitchen space that you could rent out, for instance. So, and there are many more ideas for it. So that's the update.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks,
You're
Dan.
welcome.
Thanks for working.
My pleasure. It's very exciting. Great team too.
So, yeah, those have been there for a long time.
Yes.
Is any more question, concern? The Historic Preservation Board meeting will be adjourned.
15 on the dot.
Nice to see everyone.